TG Geeks, episode 302, November 30th, 2020. Today's episode is pretty grim. Hello and welcome to another webcast from tggeeks.com, where Ben and Keith, the Two Gay Geeks, talk about all aspects of Geek-dom and Nerd-ery, sci-fi, comics, film, horror genre. You name it, we talk about it. I'm Keith Lane, and we're coming to you from TG Squared Studios in lovely post-Thanksgiving Phoenix, Arizona.
And I'm Ben Raggington, also coming to you from a rather cool place in the south, in the desert southwest, feeling like the turkey that has been stuffed here
exactly.
in Phoenix, Arizona.
Stuffed is the operative word there. Let's get on with it.
Prepare for hyperdrive.
Meanwhile, in the Hall of Episodes, the Two Gay Geeks are discussing this.
Well, just before Thanksgiving, we finished our watching of the series Grimm.
Rewatching,
yes, rewatching.
It's over.
Yep, and then, so we're going to talk about that today. Have our birthday shout-outs, our featured podcast of the week, and our feedback and shout-outs. And in our second segment, we're going to talk about a movie that we watched, also for pre-Thanksgiving, and then our weekly recap and a regular shout-out. So let's get on with our discussion of Grimm. Well, there we go. I got it right this time.
Yes, you did.
Even though I was moving the wrong fader. It's like, why isn't this going down?
Why is it fading up?
Why is it? It's not fading out. What the heck?
What is it supposed to fade?
Exactly. Well, this time we are going to talk about the was it NBC series?
Yes, it was
NBC. Series Grimm.
And we have been kind of making reference to it a lot.
Correct.
In our second segment. That's during the course of the rewatch.
Yeah.
But holy smokes, we just finished it.
It's as wild a ride the second time as it was the first time.
Yeah.
Although there were so many episodes, it's like, I don't remember ever seeing that.
I don't remember that. Or I don't remember
this happening. Or I thought that was going to happen.
It became a bit of a game trying to remember where things were going to go. And we got about half of them right. And the other half we were like way off.
Yeah. And the interesting thing was that we were introduced to Grimm on Slice of Sci Fi because we interviewed a number of the
There were two
folks,
people from the show, if I remember right.
Claire Coffey and
Reggie
Lee, who plays Sergeant Wu, and Claire played Adeline. But otherwise, I don't know that we knew about that show. The interesting thing is I wanted to say this, and I thought about this earlier, that I wanted to say that we kind of live in a little bubble.
Oh, please.
And there's some things that never come to our attention that I just don't know about. And I mean, and it's not just television or movies or sci-fi or anything like that, but something snuck up on us this week that I had no clue that it was even going on, the Transgender Remembrance Day.
Oh,
it's like,
wow.
What the heck?
How did we miss that?
How did we miss that? Or how did we miss this big thing in the LGBTQ community,
right.
or this and that? I mean, we truly live in a bubble. Maybe it's because I'm not as diligent at
Well,
looking for stuff. And
I think there's other things going on. The fact, we live in Arizona, so we're kind of removed from a lot of the hot spots or epicenters where a lot of celebrations of these natures would take place. And also there's this stupid thing called a pandemic.
Well, that's true too. But even before that, we were not as connected probably as we should be. I mean, we tend to be hermits anyway. And this
True.
is just the pandemic has certainly reinforced that.
And that's a reflection of our age, I think, because I'm 59, you're 60, so there you are.
Anyway, so Grimm came to our attention, and we started watching it as a result of talking to those folks on Slice of Sci-Fi, and we had to catch up.
Oh, heavens, yes.
Because they were right in the middle of the series. In fact, they hadn't even, Sergeant Wu had not even discovered what Vesson were.
No, he had
at the point that, and we talked about that. And he talked about how his character is kind of clueless through this whole thing. It became a gag.
Yeah, exactly. It became a bit of a joke that poor Sergeant Wu was just clueless as to the details of what was going on. I mean, he suspected there was something weird with Nick, the Grimm, and his police partner Hank, but the fact that they'd gone that far into the show and Wu knew nothing,
right,
was hilarious. I mean, Nick's girlfriend Juliet learned sooner than Wu did.
Exactly.
Wu became a bit of a gag. I mean, he's like the Ensign Kim of Grimm.
Exactly. So, for those of you who don't know what the series Grimm is, oh my gosh, it was 6 seasons.
I believe so,
on NBC, and it starts out as Nick Burkhardt is a police officer. He's a detective, and stumbles on an unusual murder in Portland. And this is the whole thing is filmed in Portland,
all of it,
and that's where it takes place. So there's a lot of Portlandia, if you will.
Well, I like the fact that they did that.
They have, actual restaurants and lots of local folks that they used as extras and as, regular characters that came back.
Some actors that we've actually talked to since Grimm who appeared in it because they were Portland locals.
Right. So he discovers this unusual murder, and then kind of discovers that he can see things that other folks can't. And that is that these people have changed their appearance. And it's called voguing. And it's lots of German words that
nobody got right.
The interesting thing is that there must have been no dialect coach on this show, because if you wanted to know how to not speak German, watch Grimm. Or how to speak German badly, watch Grimm.
Yeah, the pronunciations.
They changed, and even characters, the same characters that said the word over and over and over and over and over again.
Yeah, there's a lack of consistency there.
Yeah, but he notices that these characters are the first one is a werewolf.
No, actually, he sees Adeline first.
Yes, who is a hexen beast, which is a witch.
A very ugly-looking witch.
The Monroe, he discovers, is a Blutbaden, which is basically a werewolf type or wolf type of Wesen. And then he discovers that this is a whole community of folks that can change their appearance, or
a whole world.
Yeah, a whole world. And that's what the whole series is about, is him discovering all these Wesen. And then promptly after he discovers that he can do this, his aunt shows up, who has this trailer and warns him about blah, 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 and this and that and the other. And I wish I'd been here when you discovered this. And your mother and myself were a what they called Grimms, Grimm, after the brothers Grimm.
Yeah, it's sort of a monster hunter.
Yeah, monster hunter, if you will.
And they're specially skilled. They have, there's something about their genetic makeup that allows them to, at a certain age, they're able to finally recognize a Wesen when they see it. And the opposite of that is when a Wesen has vogued into their monster form, they're able to recognize a Grimm for what they are.
Right.
So there's something kind of special about Grimms in general. And when we first meet Aunt Marie, for example, she's dying of cancer, yet the woman can put up one heck of a fight. So it kind of suggests that Grimms are pretty good fighters to begin with, but then through circumstance, Nick becomes a super Grimm.
Yeah, and it's interesting that his character as the Grimm becomes friends with the Wesen community there in Portland, and also then the larger Wesen community, and everybody's heard about him. And then it's just, and the Grimm lineage goes all the way back to biblical times. Mm-hmm. And so you find out that the Wesen have gone all the way back. So those regular people and the Wesen have lived together for millennia.
Yeah, and there's a whole history as to why the cultures are the way they are today. It's an amazing mythology.
Yeah.
I mean, it's some of the best
and they
world
just
building.
Continued adding to it.
Well, what I liked about it, and I'm not a fan of infodump. I've said this many times. I loathe infodump. But what's great is because Nick is the central character. He is learning this. As he learns this, we learn it too. So we're getting the world building at a really comfortable stage, at a comfortable pace.
And occasionally it gets info dumpish, but
a tiny bit, but it never becomes...
it's like Nick is overwhelmed at the same time, with that info dump.
So we get to process all of this information at the same time as Nick does. And that's one of the things that I really liked about the show is that it had this wonderful, rich tapestry that by the time you get to the end of the series is so complex that I found myself crying that there wasn't more.
Right.
And in fact, it's interesting. They just, on social media, there was a picture from a very recent episode. It was the Cupid episode, if you will, where all of our main characters are up at a very swanky hotel celebrating Monroe's birthday. There was a snippet of that. It was a production shot. And it started this whole conversation. And now everybody's talking about, why isn't there more Grimm? There are more stories to tell.
Right.
And I agree, because by the time we get to the end of the series, they have not even covered everything.
Right.
That obviously is there. I mean, even story elements that are introduced early on are never looked back at again.
Oh, I know.
So there's a lot of story they could still tell, and that's what is so rich about this. And they did it in such a way that I found it very easy to suspend disbelief.
Exactly. And like you said, there was a bunch of story plots, or I don't think they were plutonium by any means, but I think they were plot points that they started to investigate, and the natural rhythm of the story and the characters kind of made those plot points obsolete, if you will. Perhaps. Because there was something else, some other place that they could go, and the story arc changed
a lot,
multiple times throughout the series. And as you said, some of the stuff, it's like, okay, we haven't heard about them in like a season, or we haven't heard about that in,
or at the very end of the series, one major story arc that was going on, all of a sudden just gets this, it literally gets wiped away with a single line. Oh, it's over.
Right.
What?
Exactly.
It's over?
What? Well, I think that probably
was out of necessity,
because that was the last season.
Yeah.
They only gave them 12 episodes, 13 episodes in the last season
it was
where they
very
were
cut
running
short.
26 episodes. So I think what happened is it may have been very much like what they did with Elementary. And I said this at the time, is we're in the middle of a season and they said, okay, we're not going to renew. And so they had like 5 episodes to wind the thing up.
Try to, and I will give NBC credit in that they did give the showrunners an opportunity to actually come up with some kind of resolution, albeit it was
very rushed,
very abrupt, and I had a hard time and accepting a lot of the story points. It left some major plot holes, but that's again due to the fact that they were given a very shortened season. I think had they been given a final season, a full season to say, here are your 26 episodes, here is your time to wrap up, I think it would have been far more tidy and it would have made a lot more sense. So I want to go back on something here. So you touched on something that I wasn't going to mention, but I'm glad you did, and that was Portland. Now, how much did that affect your enjoyment of the show? The fact that they did the entire show there, production, from the first episode all the way through to the end. How did that affect your enjoyment of the show?
Oh, I loved it. I think Portland's a beautiful city.
Oh, yeah.
I think, I marveled at the homes that they chose to use for Nick's house and this person's house and that person's house. They chose some very iconic architecture. The old arts and crafts or craftsman homes that not craftsmen, but the arts and crafts movement style of home that are in Portland, as well as some of the other things. And there was this one warehouse that I don't know how many different things it was.
They kept redressing it.
Every other episode they were there, in this warehouse or outside this warehouse or adjacent to the warehouse.
And I wouldn't be surprised.
And the forest, too.
Oh, yeah. Well, the forest, that's very reusable. I actually wouldn't be surprised if there was more to that warehouse than meets the eye, and that maybe there were parts of the interior that we didn't see, which had been used as more than just one set interior. Obviously there's Nick's new home that he hides out in there, but there are some other interior shots that I wouldn't be surprised if they actually use part of a warehouse as that. It's not uncommon. I know that Stargate SG-1 and the entire Stargate franchise in Vancouver, they just took over an entire warehouse district and built sound stages.
Yeah.
So it's very possible they did the same thing in Portland.
Well, they probably leased that warehouse.
I'm sure.
But it was very enjoyable. And they also gave several shout outs to local establishments.
Yeah.
And local businesses and eateries. Portland's known for its foodie culture, and there were a number of things. I really want to go to Portland.
Oh, desperately.
And visit Portland.
I very much want to go to Portland. I remember a couple of years ago we had gone to a screening in L.A. and we got to meet the actor Ben Farmer, and he has an episode where he appears working for the police department, working for Portland Police, I think, in an episode of Grimm. And we chatted him up a little bit at this screening, and he mentioned that Portland is a foodie delight.
Yep.
And we've got a couple of friends, from Palm Springs. They went up there because one of the husbands is a huge Grimm fan.
Yeah.
And they talked about how they just toured all of Portland. And I thought, I think I really want to go there. And after rewatching the show, is like, I want to go there just to get fat. Yeah, I'm already overweight, but I really just want to gorge out, because we see some phenomenal restaurants there, and I'm like, oh, I really want to try that out.
Yeah, and great scenery, just great people, and
a lot more beautiful than I expected.
Yeah, it's definitely Pacific Northwest and very lush and green and foresty in the outlying areas. And, so it's really I enjoyed the filming of it in Portland because
I think it gave it an authenticity.
You didn't have to. there wasn't all this location stuff that they had to do. I did notice, towards the middle of the series that they did a lot of filming at night, and that was probably, especially if they were going to be outside in doing anything strenuous, everything was at night, and probably easier to get the permits and to close the streets off at night than it was during the day.
Yes, I remember you commented on that during one scene where there's a riot of sorts, and that would make perfect sense.
And there was also an interesting scene that it was the last season that we'd always seen Nick's house, the interior of the house, from one angle,
right?
One or two angles. And then all of a sudden they switched it around in the last season. And I thought, where is that? And then I started working it around because we'd seen everything that was surrounding that. We'd just never seen that particular angle of the interior of the house. So it was fascinating, and they did a lot of took a lot of artistic license with their cinematography, which was great.
Oh, I like that a great deal, and I clearly the cinematography was used to help elevate the storytelling, and I think that's one of the reasons why inside Nick's house they did that change, because that was supposed to heighten where the narrative was going at that particular moment,
exactly.
If I remember correctly.
It was just before they left the house.
I believe you're right.
Yeah.
So let's talk about some of the characters.
Oh my gosh!
I mean, I'm gonna
the Scooby Gang. You mean?
Yeah. Well, eventually becomes the Scooby Gang. I think any kind of group of people that work for a good common cause become known as a Scooby Gang, and it starts off as just Nick, and then there's Monroe, who becomes a mentor of all things,
right?
Which I thought was hilarious.
He's the Blutbaden, and a
reformed Blutbaden in a way.
Yes, and he teaches Nick about Grimms, and he becomes the resident Grimm expert. And then
resident. Well, he becomes one of the resident Wesen experts.
Wesen experts, and then you get.
Well, there's Rosalie.
Rosalie, who becomes, Monroe and Rosalie get married, but she's a different type of Wesen, and she runs a spice and tea shop that's primarily for Wesen, the Wesen community, and the various spices and whatnot. And she's kind of the resident
pharmacist,
pharmacology.
Yeah, there's another word for it that's more
Wesen community.
That's more apothecarian.
Yes,
if there's such a word.
Yep, and then you have Hank, that is Nick's partner on the police force, and from there it kind of branches out a little bit
into some very odd ways.
Juliet becomes, who is Nick's girlfriend. She finds out about, and then she becomes a Hexenbeast. And then you get the captain.
Yeah.
Who is not really part of the Scooby Gang, but he is. He's very involved, and he's very involved in these Wesen crimes that have been committed. And Monroe says something, if it's a riot, it's usually Wesen, or street gangs, it's usually Wesen. So interesting. And then you have Sergeant Wu, and then Adeland, who has this on again, off again, good, bad, and the ugly, if you will.
Yeah.
in throughout the entire series, she's a bad Hexenbeast, and then she's a good Hexenbeast, and then she's a bad one, and then she's a good one again. Then she's this.
Yeah, I would say that of all the character arcs, hers and Juliet's are probably the two most interesting. Mm-hmm. Because of where they go. I mean, as you pointed out, Juliet, spoilers in case anybody doesn't know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
And so, and I should say, if you haven't watched this show, stop listening. Because
after 22 minutes of talking about it.
Yeah, spoiling the entire show. Stop listening to us. But to see the way Juliet changes. I mean, she goes from one extreme to the other, and then she becomes a fembot of a way.
Oh, and you can't forget Bud. Oh my God.
Everybody's favorite Eisenbieber.
He is. Oh my God.
The guy's a nervous wreck.
He is. But he's kind of the comic relief in some episodes.
In a way, but
he also serves a purpose.
He does. Because you see with him, he is the face of the larger Vesson community that looks to Nick as a protector as opposed to a hunter.
Right, exactly. So it is a great series.
I loved this show so much, and I
was sad that it was over.
So I want to quickly touch because we're running out of time. But how do you like the way they ended it? I'm not talking so much about with the destroyer and all that. I'm talking about the final scene.
The final scene, the 20 years later.
20 years later. What do you think of that?
I thought it was great. I thought that only says that there is more story to tell.
Oh yeah.
So,
and I was thinking the same thing. I mean, you
have 20 years worth of story to tell and more story to tell with them.
Yeah. You've got the son, Kelly. You've got his older half sister, Diana, who is like one heck. I'd like to see where she's going.
Right.
What kind of powers does she have? And we don't even know about Kelly. He's what? He's the
20.
Well, no, he's the spawn of a Grimm and a Hexenbeast. What kind of powers does that guy have?
Exactly.
They work with Monroe's and Rosalie's kids, the triplets. I want to know more about them. And apparently, Nick and Adeline are still very active.
Yep.
So there's so many more stories that I would love to see. I don't know. Maybe somebody needs to write books.
Yeah.
On these. But yeah, I loved how it ended. I just wish there could have been a heck of a lot more.
Exactly. And that's it. If you haven't watched Grimm,
do it.
We encourage you. It's free on Amazon. Is that
Amazon
correct?
Prime Video? That's
Amazon
what I saw.
Prime Video. It's free right now.
And even though we kind of spoiled a heck of a lot, I would say go ahead and watch it anyway, because during our rewatch, knowing knowing that we had already seen it did not spoil it at all. It was so much fun because the characters are just that rich.
Yep.
This is Chuck Tomasi, author of Podcasting for Dummies and host of Technorama, the podcast for geeks. And you are listening to the Two Gay Geeks, because geek is better than cool.
Well, that was fun. It's a lot of fun.
I love talking about that show.
Yeah. And here's a few selected birthdays for November 30th through December 6th, 2020. November 30th, Ridley Scott.
Ridley Scott?
Yes, producer, director. Blade Runner is the big, sci-fi thing.
I would say
as well as
Alien,
other things that he has done as well.
But the guy is one heck of a director. I mean, he has I don't know what else to say except Ridley Scott.
Yeah. He frequently sketched out his own storyboards with great artistic style for most of his movies.
Doesn't surprise me.
Is called the father of director's cuts. To be, he was the first person to release a director's cut in the theater.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
What was the movie? Was it Blade Runner?
Blade Runner, yep. And then directed. He did several hundred commercials.
No, I didn't know that.
Yes. He directed the 1984
the Apple commercial.
Yes.
Yes. Oh,
launching Apple Macintosh.
Yeah, that's so Brave New World.
Yep.
Yes, I did know that. I'd forgotten.
And he bought Shepperton Studios with his brother in 1995.
All right.
And was briefly considered to direct the Doctor Who movie.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That would have been very dark.
Yeah, interesting. Samuel Clemens, also known as Mark
Twain.
Twain. As author, he was a riverboat captain on the Mississippi River at one time. He was a lecturer, humorist, followed his brother to San Francisco, where he tried his hand at mining and was no good. But while he was in the mining industry, shall we say, he overheard a story at a hotel that he was staying at, and it ended up being the celebrated jumping frog of Calaveras County and garnered him international attention. He made a ton of money on his writings, but lost it all because of poor investments. He was, I don't think that he was gullible. He believed in people and believed in what, but unfortunately, they didn't succeed. So, but then he made more money later.
Yeah, two interesting things about him that I think are interesting. One is he was born and died the year Halley's Comet came by.
Yep.
Which it kind of figures into the overall Mark Twain mythology.
Yep.
And he loved kittens.
Yes. He was also a proponent of civil rights and women's rights.
Oh, indeed.
Oh, huge.
Good for him.
Huge proponent.
So he was clearly a progressive.
Yes, very progressive. And then it says that he was born just after the appearance of Halley's Comet and said he would go out with it, and he died the day after the comet made its closest approach to Earth.
Yeah.
And then it's just a fascinating author. And he also made an appearance in Star Trek Next Generation.
Yes, he did.
Two-parter.
Yes, he did.
With Madame Guinan.
With Madame Guinan, yeah. Time Zero.
Yep. And then we have Shirley Chisholm, teacher. She was the first black woman elected to Congress from 1969 to 1983.
Fantastic.
In 1972, she became the first woman and the first black woman to seek the candidacy for presidency.
Oh.
Yep. For president. Yep. December 1st, Matthew Shepard.
Oh, dear.
Gay man who was horrifically murdered in 1998 at the age of 21. One of the driving moments that spurred the hate crimes legislation at the state and federal level, and that was finally signed into law in 2009 by President Obama. And Judy Shepard, his mother, was a prominent LGBT rights activist. Sojourner Truth, American abolitionist. She was born into slavery. She was an abolitionist and women's rights activist. She was born in 1797.
Wow.
And Dutch was her first language because she was born in upstate New York.
Which was founded by the Dutch.
Yep.
In fact, it was up then, I think it was called New Amsterdam.
Yep. And she helped recruit black troops for the Union Army. She spoke on women's rights in a famous speech that became known as the Ain't I a Woman speech in Ohio. It was transcribed by somebody that gave it a very southern accent, although she never lived in the South.
Right.
She was born in the North. And in 2009, she became the first African-American woman to have a statue in the Capitol.
No kidding.
Yep. And then we have a good friend of ours, Aaron Blunt, that we've taken a cruise with a couple of times. And wonderful friend, lives up in Seattle. December 2nd, Maria Callas, opera singer, known as La Divina, and was known for her wide vocal range and her dramatic interpretations. Sang everything from bel canto to opera seria and classical opera. And you could definitely say that her life was every bit as dramatic as the women she portrayed on stage. Was in a relationship with Aristotle Onassis before Jackie O was. And she was just... You could hear sometimes her mood in her singing.
Oh, yeah.
Because there were some times that she was just brilliant, and then there were other times that she was a little bit off, you know?
Yeah, she was very much disturbed by the separation with Aristotle. That just tore her apart.
And then Jonathan Frid, actor, everybody's favorite TV vampire.
Interestingly enough, I just discovered, and I don't know how long it's been there, but the entire series of Dark Shadows is on Amazon Prime.
Yep. 597 episodes.
Oh, the thing lasted forever.
I know. Was that 597 make it, 15 years?
And
something like that?
Yeah, well, we're talking an episode a day,
Yep.
you know, Monday through Friday.
Yep. And he was in the movie The House of Dark Shadows that effectively ended the series.
Pretty much.
And had a cameo in the 2012 remake, but died just shortly before that movie was released. Now, the movie House of Dark Shadows, because, you know, obviously the TV series kind of ended.
Yeah.
And then they made the movie to wind it up. And I remember seeing that at the
Rats?
At the Rats. It was called the Ritz Theater. Had an old vaudeville theater in Muskogee, Oklahoma, and it was known as the Rats because you would walk in with a pair of shoes, but you never wore those shoes out because they stuck to the floor.
Ew.
The place was horrible, and my sister and I were sitting towards the front. And
that ending scene.
Well, there's this one ending scene in that it's a fade to or it's a cut to black that is the face of Barnabas after he's gone through this treatment, and it's just like his face on the screen.
Doesn't he just like bolt out of a coffin and there is like his
just
face
right
screen?
there? And I don't remember anything until halfway up the aisle screaming and along with everybody else. And I told that to Devette C., who has written a number of articles for us and is a friend of ours, lives out in Los Angeles. She's from Muskogee, too. And she said, "Oh, my God, I remember that day. It was a Saturday morning.
Oh, was she
everybody
there?
Was there. Yes." She said, "Oh, my God, everybody was screaming and running up the aisles during that scene."
Far out.
It was just the funniest thing.
I saw it on a little tiny black and white television, so it did nothing for me.
Yeah, well, it was something else. December 3rd, Andy Williams,
Mr. Christmas,
had a career in singing and on TV as the Andy Williams Show in the 60s. He opened Caesar's Palace in 1966.
Wow, I'm not surprised.
And had a career there for 20 years. And then he opened his own theater in Branson, Missouri called the Moon River Theater after the song.
Yeah.
And performed almost until he died of bladder cancer.
Yeah,
I mean, just
he
days
performed
before.
really up to the end.
Yep.
And the man had a range.
Quite the range.
Because you normally don't hear it, but I know that every Christmas, we'll try maybe get some listening into this year. But every time, we like go to Southern California, for example, at Christmas time where we're driving around, running errands, you play this Christmas mix that you have in the car.
Yep.
And some of the Andy Williams CDs are there. And there's this one song where he just kicks it up into this high range that just makes my eyebrows go up. It's so high, it's so clear, and you don't know that he can do it because he normally doesn't sing in that part of his voice.
Right.
It's an amazing, and I wish I have a huge regret in that we never had a chance to see him in Branson.
Yeah. Well, Lynn and John say that they used to go to his show all the time.
I understand it was wonderful.
Branson. Said it was just a wonderful experience. And it's Andy Williams really means Christmas to me because I remember going to my dad's house and inevitably when we would show up, he would put on one of the Andy Williams albums.
It's not the Christmas season until that album is put on.
Exactly. So a fond memory of Christmas in my family. of Christmases past, let's put it that way, in the young years. Mm-hmm. Then we have Andrew Stanton, part of the brain trust of Pixar. Animation Studios, writer, director, was the second animator and the 9th employee of Pixar.
That's how far back he
Way
goes.
back when Steve Jobs owned the whole thing.
I don't know if he's still doing... I don't know if he's doing anything with Pixar these days.
I thought he was.
He might be. I know that he did his own live-action film with John Carter.
Yeah.
But I don't think he's spearheaded any Pixar films.
No, he's just kind of part of the...
Just the executive team.
Yeah. He did Bug's Life, Toy Story, Wall-E. Nemo, Finding Nemo, and Finding Dory. And then John Carter, he was Crush in Finding Nemo.
Right.
And so he was the voice of Crush. So that was fascinating. And then we have a good friend of ours, Edward Pulley, and Corey Lynn Nelson.
Happy
birthday. And December 4th, Jeff Bridges, actor, son of legendary actor Lloyd Bridges. Yep. And he was in Tron, Big Lebowski, Tron Legacy, Tron Lebowski, yes.
and worked with his brother Bo.
Yep, exactly. And is good friends with Kurt Russell, who actually has done several movies that he was either offered a role in that Kurt Russell played or was passed over for a role that Kurt Russell played.
Oh.
A number of films.
I'm trying to now imagine Jeff Bridges in Big Trouble in Little China.
Exactly. But that one, no, that had to be Kurt Russell.
That's got to be Kurt Russell. Nobody else can touch that one.
Yeah. And he is avid photographer. He was known for doing photography in between takes on set. And known for his liberal views, and is a talented guitarist.
Yes, he is. In fact, some of the bonus material for Tron Legacy has some interviews with him and Garrett Hedlund, who plays his character's son in Tron Legacy, and the two of them would just jam on music all the time, which I think is cool.
Tony Todd, actor. My gosh, he's been in everything. I mean, literally everything.
Yeah.
He, oh my gosh.
Lots of horror.
Lots of horror. Been in TNG, DS9, Voyager, Babylon 5, SG-1, Flash.
Babylon 5?
Yeah, he did an episode of Babylon 5.
Oh my gosh, I actually don't know that one.
I can't remember which one it was. I forgot.
I'm ashamed to admit that I don't know that.
Was considered for Dormammu in...
and Doctor Strange? Really?
Is 6'5". He's a big man. And he actually right now has 17 productions anywhere between pre and post production or completed.
Wow.
It's amazing. Truly amazing. He's quite a talent too. What a talent.
What a talent.
Yeah,
but he did an episode of Next Gen where he played an adult Jake Sisko. It's one of the most heartwarming episodes that Deep Space Nine ever put out.
Yep.
I mean, it's just beautiful.
Yep. And then, let's see, Dane Quentin Gore, friend of ours, his birthday. December 5th, Walter Elias Disney.
Who's that?
Oh my gosh, what can you say about Walt Disney?
Who changed the world, in my opinion?
Exactly. A record 59 Oscar nominations and 22 wins.
He changed the world in so many ways in terms of movies, animation, family entertainment. And
exactly.
I'm not just talking about the movies, but also theme parks.
Theme parks. I mean, just everything. It's just amazing. He served in the same Red Cross unit as Ray Kroc.
Oh, really?
The founder of McDonald's.
I didn't know that.
Or not founder, but actually the owner of McDonald's, because McDonald's was a hamburger stand before Ray bought it.
Oh,
so,
I didn't know that either.
Yeah. And he was a chain smoker.
I knew.
3 packs of unfiltered cigarettes a day.
And that helped contribute to his passing.
From lung cancer. But it was his smoker's hack that alerted employees of his presence in the building.
The boss is coming.
The boss is coming, exactly. And then we have Werner Heisenberg, theoretical physicist, won the Nobel Prize in 1932 for the creation of quantum mechanics, known for the uncertainty principle, which actually states that the more precisely you can determine the position of a particle, the less precisely its momentum can be predicted.
That is
now
a headful.
Yeah. Now, it is routinely confused with the observer effect that says the measurements are directly affected by the measuring process.
Right.
Which they kind of
they
dovetail a little bit.
They touch.
But the uncertainty principle is much more precise than the observer principle. December 6th, Ryan White, a teenager who became the poster child for the HIV/AIDS movement, if you will, in America. He was a hemophiliac.
Yeah.
And they discovered that at 3 days old that he was a severe hemophiliac.
I didn't know it was that
bad. Received weekly blood
transfusions?
What was it? Factor 8 or something like that. Blood transfusion a week. It was made from plasma, and was infected that way through a blood transfusion with HIV. In 1984, he was given 6 months to live and lived 6 years.
Amazing.
He died a week before his high school graduation. And
what a shame.
Yeah, because of his diagnosis and the subsequent refusal by the school board to readmit him to school, set up several mechanisms to understand the disease and how it's transmitted, as well as research for management of the disease. And the Ryan White Act was signed into law just after his death in 1990.
I know that I recently saw an interview with Elton John, and that conversation came up because Elton became a big advocate for Ryan. He says he's still good friends with the entire family.
Yeah. And then we have Ira Gershwin, lyricist, brother of George. He was the genius behind the rhyming and the made-up words of many of the songs. He was best man at Vincent Minnelli and Judy Garland's wedding.
Oh, I did not know that.
Godfather of Liza.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah. Ira was a genius, and he talks about being a lyricist, and he even would listen to his lyrics as they were being sung and say, wow, how did I ever come up with that?
I
basically.
I dazzled myself.
Yeah. He said, it's something that you have to develop. It's not something that you
you need to cultivate
into.
that talent.
Exactly. And then we have a Facebook friend of ours, Andy Luke. And that's it for the birthdays this time.
Technorama, the podcast for geeks, because geeks are better than cool. You don't hear someone say, "Get away from me, you cool person." Who's gonna have their 65-inch home theater system installed by the Cool Squad? Not me, that's for sure. How much cool cred do you have? Not enough to care about. Think you'll find any canned unicorn meat at thinkcool.com? It's just a part domain name. They don't even have roadkill in a paper cup. That's why you need to start listening to Technorama, because that's what geeks do. Go to chuckchat.com and listen to Technorama before you turn cool.
Go give a listen to our friends over at Technorama Podcast, Chuck and Craig, and this week we're going to be on the show. So it's interesting that we haven't been up there. I mean, normally we go up to the studio and we have been.
It's been over a year.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, because it was like 6 months since we were last up there before the pandemic.
Yeah, but it's going to be a lot of fun.
I'm Daniel Radcliffe, and I believe that reaching out for help is the bravest thing a person can do. If you are struggling and need support, call the Trevor Lifeline at 1-866-488-7386. It's free and confidential, and trained counselors are there to listen 24/7 without judgment. To learn more about the Trevor Project's life-saving work for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, or questioning young people, go to thetrevorproject.org.
Well, it's time for the feedback, and each of these items in this feedback segment will be featured in the show notes, the links for this episode, TG Geeks number 302 at tggeeks.com. Starting with, regarding TG Geeks episode number 299, we got a comment from Jeff Baker. I think he's saying wow, and I think he's saying wow because we were talking about coming up on 300.
Right, exactly.
And moving on, regarding Hamish Downey's 5 questions with Norm Yip, we got a comment from Norm Yip on Twitter, and he says, Hamish interviewed me for the Two Gay Geeks. Thanks, really appreciate this. And then we got a bunch of stuff regarding episode 300, so hang on to your seats, people. First, from Tommy Cannon, he says, congrats on reaching this epic milestone. And then I got a comment from Hamish Downey, and he says, what a lovely way to celebrate by having Jeannie Koch on again. She's always a good time. It was really interesting to hear about how she had written an entire book in the wrong voice. Well, Jeannie had to chime in.
Of course she did.
Says, interesting for you, laugh out loud, torturous rewrites for me. And of course, I had to say something, and I told her, yes, but what an interesting learning experience, yes? And Jeannie comes back with, that's the story we're all sticking to, laugh out loud. And Hamish then says, I wonder if your readers would be interested in reading a more thoughtful kitty. Would it be possible to change the names and release the story as something else? And Jeannie says, no. Trust me, no. In other words, actually, the more apt response, Jeannie, will be not just no, but hell no.
Exactly.
And then moving on, we got a comment from Mrs. Summers. Keith's niece says, our niece. She says, congratulations on 300 episodes. And then I got another comment from Hamish again, and this is in regards to the interview with Jeannie Koch. He says, also, I took the plunge and bought a copy of Happy Acres after hearing you recommend it so often. The ebook version, as the print copy, was going over 10,000 yen, which is about $100.
Wow.
And
it's just what? It's 60 pages, maybe?
I had that thing read in under 2 hours.
Yeah.
When we say short story, we're talking short story. It's not long. And then he follows up by saying, sorry to hear you're not a fan of Bjork. She is more than a dress. I'm a big fan of her quirky cinematic music and incredible music videos. I know that she's big in Europe and the UK. Okay, I will give her another try. And I will admit that I had a bunch of coworkers at a job I worked at 20 years ago, and all the queens who worked in the office with me, they adored her. I just couldn't get it, but I will give her another try. So there you are. And that's our feedback.
And you can find all of these comments, and you can leave a comment for yourself if you wish to on any article or an episode. You can do that on each article or episode at tggeeks.com, or you can do it on our Facebook page, or you can do it on Twitter or Instagram, as well as the YouTube episodes. And if you want to, you could leave us a voicemail, kind of like Pia has done and Summers had done. You can call us at 469-TG-Geeks. That is 469-844-3357. And as always, please play nice. As everybody knows, we're huge supporters of independent creators, whether it's filmmakers, comic book artists, writers, or others. Please support independent creators right now, especially during this pandemic time, that some of their avenues for releasing and selling their stuff have disappeared this year. And as always, talk to them, chat them up, talk to other people about them. Look at their stuff, buy their stuff. Please support independent creators. The Joshua Tree Feeding Program is a 501c3 nonprofit food pantry for the HIV and AIDS community in Maricopa and Pinal counties. They offer a wide range of food, and they set it up like a store so that they clients can choose what they want, so no food is wasted. Please consider supporting the Joshua Tree Feeding Program by going to jtfp.org. If you are trans or are questioning your gender identity, and if you are in crisis or are feeling isolated and need someone to talk to, or you know of someone in a similar situation, there is a special hotline just for you. The hotline is provided by translifeline.org and staffed by trained counselors who are transgender themselves. The hotline in the U.S. is 877-565-8860. In Canada, it is 877-330-6366. Or you can go to translifeline.org to learn about the important work they are doing. Please reach out for help. You are not alone.
Yeah, baby. They're like two gay geeks. They're together, you know. They're two gay guys and they're geeks. Is that okay?
Okay, now we're going to talk a little bit about a movie that we saw last week. I've already got my review for it. It came out the day before Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
But I kind of want to get Keith's thoughts on this. If you want to read about Uncle Frank, you can go to tggeeks.com and find my review there. But I think it'd be nice to kind of get Keith's point of view, because during the course of the film, there were some interesting opinions that you were giving. So what are your initial thoughts about the movie as a story first?
Well, certainly it was very real and pushed some buttons for me, because I grew up in, a small town as well,
Mm-hmm.
and experienced some of that prejudice and, the bad stuff
Right.
around being gay. And it just really... as well as family stuff and all of that. It just pushed a lot of buttons, and it made me a little uncomfortable.
So that would speak to something about the realism and authenticity of the story.
Absolutely. And it certainly came from a knowledge and, a heartfelt place about the story.
Well, I read that.
I know it's based on...
It's loosely
true
based on,
story.
Alan Ball, who wrote and directed the movie. The character of Daddy Mac is loosely based on his own father. So there is some kind of realism that Alan could draw upon. So what do you think of the performances? And there are a lot of secondary characters, but there are three primary characters, and that being Uncle Frank, his partner Wally, and Frank's niece Beth. Paul Bettany, Peter McDisey, and Sophia Lillis. What were your thoughts on them?
I thought they were all great. They were perfect, and they had great chemistry together.
Mm-hmm.
Paul Bettany really he embodied that free spirit in New York and the tortured individual in the small town.
Yes.
And Wally was just this carefree, wonderful, just, how do I say, over the top, character, that a supportive husband, if you will.
Yeah. He was so filled with love.
Yeah,
so much love in him. He was. I thought he was delightful, and it's interesting that the actor Peter McDisey is the real life partner to the writer director Alan Ball. I thought that was kind of nice that a real LGBTQ actor could be brought in to play that role. I thought that was nice.
And then the niece was wonderful to see. She idolized her Uncle Frank.
Yeah.
And then, obviously went to New York to go to New York University to be near him.
Mm-hmm.
And then to see that whole process of discovery that he is a gay man, and that, all of that, and to help him through that process, and said, you need to be just who you are.
Yes. That's the thing that really impressed me about her too, because when you first see her, she comes across as very innocent.
Yeah.
I mean, she's got this idea of what she wants to do. She has a very open mind, but there's an idealism and a naivete because of where she lives. And then she gets exposed to this world that is so foreign to her. But yet she then still shows this wisdom beyond her age. I thought that was delightful in her.
It was great.
Yeah, lovely movie, hard to watch.
Yeah.
Very hard to watch. I would not call this a family film, despite the fact that it sort of kind of got marketed that way. As, hey, here's your Thanksgiving movie, people.
Yeah.
Anything but. Yeah. I mean, and it's rated R for a reason, but you know, because it's pretty stiff. I mean, the scenes with Daddy Mac are very hard to watch.
Yep.
But it's a magnificent film.
Yep.
And this is the weekly review where we go over all of the items that we ran on our website at tggeeks.com, starting with Sunday, November 22nd, Nerdy Chupacabras number 23. On Monday the 23rd, TG Geeks episode number 301. On Tuesday the 24th, Help the Croods provide 1 million meals to families in need this holiday season through Feeding America. On Wednesday the 25th, Ben's Gay Breakdown. Uncle Frank tells of a time best not forgotten. On Thursday the 26th, Happy Thanksgiving during the Great Pause. Please remember to take care of yourself. On Friday the 27th, News Sushi number 107, morsels of news from Japan and beyond. And on Saturday the 28th, it wouldn't be Thanksgiving, Ben's Breakdown, Mad About You, Giblets for Murray. And that is what we ran on our website at tggeeks.com. Have to give a couple of shout outs. First to the Arkle Times Post Dispatch News for republishing our content from time to time. It is put out by the human Arkle Brian Weber, and you can find him on Twitter by searching for Arkle, and when you do that, you'll then be able to find the Post Dispatch News. But while you're out there looking for him on the internets, look for Arkle Studios on YouTube. That's youtube.com/Arkle Studios. Brian has a number of his projects there. His Shameless Cash Grab series, his Rants vs. Zombies series, as well as his game videos of Trick and Treat, as well as Star Trek Online. We must also give some shout-outs to a couple of Facebook groups for allowing us to share our content there. First, Two Gay Geeks After Hours. We must give big thanks to them, to the moderators, for literally saying we could share away our content there. Their URL is facebook.com/groups/Gay Geeks After Hours. And then to The Gay Geek for the same. Their URL is facebook.com/groups/The Gay Geek. And as always, we must give special thanks to their moderator, Jeremiah Reeves.
And you can also find us on Spotify, TuneIn, Stitcher, as well as where other fine podcasts can be found. Check us out also on Krypton Radio at 3 a.m. and 3 p.m. Pacific Time on Tuesdays. Listen to their other content that they have. They're a 24-hour geeky internet radio station. I don't know what word I was trying to say there, but please rate us and review us on iTunes, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. And that should do it for this episode of TG Geeks Webcast. Be sure to check out the article for this webcast episode. We're going to have several links on the page of things that we talked about. And remember, you can comment on our Facebook page or our website, tggeeks.com, or you can leave us a voicemail at 469-TG-GEEKS. That is 469-844-3357 from TG Squared Studios. I am Keith Lane. Thanks for listening. Please be kind to yourself and those around you. Stay home, stay safe, stay sane. Peace.
Cheers.